Section 5.3, number 57, we need to find the exact values for the half angles of sine, cosine, and tangent. In these formulas, which I wrote here in the colored below, you see we only need the cosine. So I'm planning on using the sine over cosine relationship for tangent, and if that works out nicely, then we'll be done with that and won't have to use the other half angle formula for tangent. So let's start with this. So first of all, we're going to need to know if it's plus or minus, if the angle is going to be positive or negative, because you see that the equation has that plus or minus there. So let's think about if the whole angle is in Q2, so that means the whole angle is somewhere between 90 degrees and 180 degrees, then that must mean that the angle theta is in Q1, because half of that would be somewhere between 45, sorry, this is theta over 2, not theta, and half of 180 is 90. So if theta is in Q2, then we know theta over 2, which is the one we're trying to find, is in Q1. So it's going to be positive. Sine and cosine will both be positive. So knowing that, I can drop that negative sign and just use positive square root of 1 minus the cosine of theta, which is negative 4/5, all over 2. And simplifying that, I'm going to change that 1 to 5 over 5, so I get a common denominator. Minus a negative is plus 4/5. All over 2, which gives me square root of 9/5, and I'm going to change that over 2 to be times 1/2, or divided by 2, which are the same thing. So if I do times 1/2, then that gives me square root of, actually I'm going to back this up a little, equals the square root of 9/10. That 9 is a perfect square, so I can express that as 3 over radical 10. And to rationalize that, I could do multiplying by radical 10 over radical 10. To rationalize it gives me 3 radical 10 over 10. Okay, that's sine. And then for cosine, again, it's positive since we're in Q1. So I'll just drop that negative sign and just write the positive. And now instead of minus, I do plus. I've already done a lot of the work here, so I'll just kind of jump to here and change that plus sign to a minus sign. So I will do 5 over 5 minus 4/5, all divided by 2. That's still under the square root, so I'm going to make that a little bigger so that's clear. 5 minus 4 gives me 1/5. Divided by 2 is the same as times 1/2, which gives me a radical 1 over 10, which equals 1 over radical 10. And again, if I want to rationalize that, then I would multiply by radical 10 over radical 10 and get radical 10 over 10. These values are equivalent. Okay, and finally tangent. I'm going to try to just use that sine over cosine relationship rather than using the formula for the half angle. It's a little quicker and easier. So I see that if I have this guy and this guy, I have a common denominator of 10. So I'm left with actually I'm gonna use the unrationalized versions because it's a little less work, a little more direct to the answer because I don't have to cancel out that radical 10. So when I take 3 radical 10 divided by 1 over radical 10, my denominators will cancel because when I divide, I flip the second and multiply, and that radical 10 will cancel. So, and then I'm left with just 3 over 1, which equals just 3.